In the year 2000, the founders of a small, money-losing company called Netflix flew to Dallas, Texas. They went to the headquarters of Blockbuster, the largest video rental chain in the world, and they offered to sell themselves. The asking price was $50 million. By most accounts, the Blockbuster executives in that room struggled not to laugh. They passed. Today, that meeting is told as a simple story of stupidity. A giant company, too arrogant to see the future. But that telling is lazy, and it is wrong, and it teaches you nothing. The truth is far more uncomfortable. The Blockbuster executives who passed on Netflix were not fools. They were doing exactly what a rational, well-run, profit-focused company is supposed to do. And that is the most dangerous part of the whole story. This is Market Cap Stories. Today, the $50 million mistake and why it was almost impossible to avoid. To understand the decision, you first have to understand the business, and specifically, where the profit actually came from. Most people assume Blockbuster made its money by renting movies. You walk in, you pick a film, you pay a few dollars, you take it home. That was the visible business. It was not, in any large part, the profitable one. Here is where the real money was. Late fees. When you rented a movie from Blockbuster, you agreed to return it by a certain date. If you returned it late, and an enormous number of customers did, you paid a penalty. At its peak, late fees were estimated to account for a very large share of Blockbuster's operating profit. By some accounts, hundreds of millions of dollars a year, a striking fraction of the company's total earnings. Sit with that fact, because it shapes everything that follows. A very large portion of Blockbuster's profit came not from customers enjoying its service, but from customers failing to return things on time and being charged for the failure. In other words, Blockbuster's profit engine was powered by customer friction, by inconvenience, by the mild, recurring annoyance of the late fee. This is the single most important fact in the episode. So let me state it in the cleanest possible form. Blockbuster was structurally dependent on a thing that its own customers disliked. The company could not simply remove the late fee without removing a large part of its own profit. Hold that thought, because Netflix was about to build a business whose entire appeal was the elimination of exactly that fee. Netflix was founded in 1997, and in the year 2000, the year of the meeting, it was a very different company from the one we know now. There was no streaming. Streaming video over the internet at that time was not yet practical for full-length films. Netflix, in 2000, mailed DVDs to people's homes in red envelopes. But the crucial thing about Netflix was not the mail. It was the structure of the offer. Netflix did not charge per movie. It charged a flat monthly subscription. For one fixed price each month, you could rent movies, and here's the key, with no due date and no late fee. You kept a disc as long as you wanted. When you mailed it back, they mailed you the next one on your list. Look carefully at what that subscription model does. It takes the single most disliked feature of the Blockbuster experience, the late fee, the due date, the friction, and it deletes it entirely. Netflix's whole pitch in 2000 could be summarized in one sentence. It is Blockbuster without the part you hate. Now, here is the trap. From inside Blockbuster, in the year 2000, Netflix did not look like a threat. It looked like a weak, niche, money-losing business. And there were real reasons to think so. Netflix was small. It was losing money. Mailing DVDs was slow. You waited days for a film, while a Blockbuster customer could have a movie in their hands in 15 minutes. Netflix served a particular kind of customer, patient, online, willing to plan ahead. That was, in 2000, a small slice of the market. So the Blockbuster executives looked at Netflix and saw, accurately, a small company with an inferior delivery speed, serving a narrow market at a loss. What they did not see, what was genuinely hard to see, was that the narrow market was about to widen and that the inferior delivery method was temporary. Now we arrive at the heart of the episode. Why did Blockbuster say no? And the answer is not because they were stupid. The answer is that buying Netflix would have required Blockbuster to deliberately attack its own most profitable activity.
Walk through the logic, as a Blockbuster executive would have.
In good faith, in the year 2000. Suppose you buy Netflix. You now own a subscription service with no late fees. To make that purchase mean anything, you have to promote it. You have to tell your customers there is a better way to rent from us. A way with no due dates and no penalties. But the moment your customers hear that message and believe it, they stop paying late fees. And late fees, as we established, were a very large part of your profit. So the honest internal calculation was brutal. Buying Netflix and promoting it properly meant voluntarily destroying a huge stream of current, reliable, highly profitable revenue in exchange for a small, unprofitable subscription business whose future was at that time genuinely uncertain. You would be trading a large, certain profit today for a small, uncertain profit tomorrow. And here is the part that makes this a genuine business lesson and not just a story. A public company is run by executives who are accountable every single quarter to shareholders. Those shareholders expect the company to protect and grow its current earnings. An executive who stood up in the year 2000 and proposed to deliberately collapse a major profit stream in order to chase a small, loss-making company with an unproven model would have faced enormous resistance from the board, from investors, from the analysts who rated the stock. It would have looked, on every conventional measure, like value destruction. This is a famous idea in business strategy, and it has a name. It is often called the innovator's dilemma. The dilemma is this: a successful, well-managed company is built, optimized, and incentivized around its existing profitable business. When a new, disruptive model appears, one that is, at first, smaller and less profitable, the established company's own rationality works against it. Every sensible internal voice, every spreadsheet, every quarterly incentive says, protect the profitable core, reject the small, weak threat. The better a company is run, by conventional standards, the more powerfully its own discipline pushes it to make exactly this mistake. There was a second problem underneath the first, and it was physical. It was built into Blockbuster's walls. Blockbuster, at its peak, operated around 9,000 stores. Each of those stores was a physical location with a lease, with shelving, with staff, with lighting and heating, with inventory sitting on the floor. That vast physical footprint was for decades Blockbuster's greatest strength. It meant there was a Blockbuster near almost everyone, convenience through sheer presence. But a physical footprint that large is also an enormous fixed cost. 9,000 leases, 9,000 sets of staff and utilities. That cost does not shrink when a customer chooses to stay home. It is there every month, whether the stores are busy or empty. Now compare that to Netflix in its DVD by mail form. Netflix had a small number of distribution warehouses, not 9,000 storefronts. No retail leases in expensive locations. No store staff. No shelving open to the public. Netflix's cost of serving one more customer was dramatically lower than Blockbuster's, and that difference was not a temporary advantage. It was structural. It was built into the very shape of the two companies. This is why Blockbuster could not simply copy Netflix, even when it tried. And it did try later, under pressure. In the mid-2000s, Blockbuster launched its own subscription service and, for a period, eliminated late fees. The effort was real, and parts of it worked well with customers, but it ran directly into both traps at once. Cutting late fees blew a hole in current profit, exactly as predicted. And the 9,000 stores were still there, still expensive, still a fixed cost, dragging on every attempt to compete on price with a leaner rival. So Blockbuster was caught in a vice. To compete with Netflix on the customer experience, it had to abandon late fees and abandon the friction which cut its profit. And it still carried a cost structure, the 9,000 stores, that a digital era competitor simply did not have. It could not win the new game without giving up the thing that funded it. And it could not shed its old costs fast enough to matter. There is one more factor in the collapse, and it is one that strategy stories often leave out, but a careful analyst never would. It is the balance sheet. It is debt. Blockbuster, for much of the 2000s, carried a significant load of debt. Some of it traced back to its corporate history. It had been owned, spun off, and restructured. Carrying debt is not by itself fatal. A healthy company with strong, stable cash flow can service debt comfortably. The danger appears when debt meets a falling business. Think about how the two things interact. Debt requires regular, fixed payments, interest, and eventually repayment. Those payments do not care how the business is doing. They are owed on schedule in good years and bad. So when Blockbuster's core rental business began to decline as customers shifted toward mail, toward kiosks, and eventually toward streaming, the company's cash flow started to fall. But the debt payments did not fall with it. The same trap in a different costume, fixed obligations that do not shrink when revenue does. This is why the end, when it came quickly. A company losing customers slowly might have years to adapt. A company losing customers slowly while also carrying heavy fixed debt and heavy fixed store costs has no such time. The fixed costs convert a gradual decline in revenue into a sudden crisis of cash. Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy protection in 2010, roughly 10 years after the meeting in Dallas. And Netflix, in that same decade, did the thing that the Blockbuster executives could not have priced in the year 2000. It moved beyond the mail. As internet speeds improved, Netflix shifted from mailing DVDs to streaming video directly. No envelope, no waiting, instant delivery. The one genuine advantage Blockbuster had held, speed, the movie in your hands in 15 minutes, was erased. Streaming was faster than driving to a store. The last reason to choose Blockbuster was gone. So let's return to the meeting in Dallas. and ask the question honestly. Was passing on Netflix for $50 million a mistake? In hindsight, knowing what Netflix became, a company worth, at times, hundreds of billions of dollars, the answer is obviously yes. $50 million for Netflix would be, in retrospect, one of the great bargains in business history. But hindsight is not a strategy. Hindsight is not available in the room. So ask the harder question. Given only what could be known in the year 2000, given the actual numbers, the actual uncertainty, the actual incentives, was the decision unreasonable? And the uncomfortable answer is not obviously. A rational executive looking at a small, loss-making company with a slow delivery method and an unproven model, and weighing it against a large, reliable, highly profitable existing business, could decline that purchase in complete good faith. The decision was consistent with everything a well-run company is taught to do. And that is the real lesson, the one that makes this story genuinely useful rather than just entertaining. Blockbuster was not destroyed by a single dumb decision. It was destroyed by a structural trap that good management made worse. The very things that made Blockbuster a strong, well-run company, its focus on current profit, its vast store network, its discipline about protecting earnings, were the exact things that prevented it from adapting. Its strengths and its trap were the same strengths. They were the same thing. The Blockbuster story is not unique. It is one clear, well-documented instance of a pattern that repeats across industries. The pattern goes like this. An established company dominates a market with a profitable model. A new entrant appears with a different model, one that is, at first, worse on some visible measure, and cheaper or more convenient on another. The established company looks at the new entrant and sees, correctly, something small and currently inferior. It declines to respond seriously, because responding would mean damaging its own profitable core. Then the new model improves. The thing it was bad at gets fixed, and the cost advantage, or the convenience advantage, remains. By the time the threat is undeniable, the established company is too committed to its old structure to escape it. You can see this pattern in different forms across many industries, and the common thread is always the same. The incumbent's failure is rarely a failure of intelligence. The executives usually see the new entrant perfectly well. The failure is a failure of incentive, of being structurally and financially unable to act on what they see. They are not blind. They are tied to the chair. So what is the durable lesson here? The part worth carrying into the next case. The lesson is not, do not be like Blockbuster. That advice is useless, because no company sets out to be Blockbuster. The useful lesson is sharper, and it is this. When you evaluate a company, including a strong, profitable, well-run one, ask a specific question. What behavior does this company's profit actually depend on? And then ask, is that behavior something the customer values or something the customer tolerates? Blockbuster's profit depended on the late fee, on something customers tolerated and quietly resented. A profit stream built on customer resentment is a profit stream living on borrowed time. Because the moment a competitor appears and offers the same service without the resented part, the customers will leave, and the incumbent will discover that it cannot follow without destroying itself. A business is most fragile, not when its customers are unhappy and leaving, but when its customers are mildly unhappy and staying, and its profit depends on them continuing to tolerate it. The executives in Dallas were not stupid. They were rational, and their rationality was the trap. They protected a profitable business that deserved, by every conventional measure, to be protected. And in protecting it, they were unable to become the company that would replace it. In a market full of companies proud of their profitable cores, the most valuable habit an investor can build is to look hard at where that profit comes from and to ask whether the customer would miss it or be relieved to see it gone. If this is the kind of strategic anatomy you find useful, subscribe to Market Cap Stories. We will see you in the next case.